morning, everyone. Today
Morning,
we are going to do January 2018 followed by June 2018. The question reads, the marks obtained by 10 students in a test scored out of 60 are shown below. So a survey was done where someone obtained marks for 10 students out of 60. The first part of the question asks for the range. The formula for range is the highest value minus the lowest value. So from observation, the highest value is 45 and the lowest value is 26. The difference between those numbers will give us the range. So take down the answer for part 1 and we will move forward in 2 minutes. Part 2 says to find the median. It is important to remember to find the median, we have to arrange the numbers in numerical order, either from highest to lowest or from lowest to highest. So here, the 10 scores were arranged in numerical order, and the word median means the middle score. So after arranging the numbers in numerical order, I have to attempt to find the middle score. And the manner in which I will find the middle score, I will cross the first and the last, the second and the second to last, the third and the third to last, the fourth and the fourth to last number. Here I have 2 scores in the middle. There is not one unique score. So the median is the average of both scores. We add 37 and 38 and we divide it by 2. The median is 37.5. So write down the answer for the median. Another name for the median is Q2. In part 3, they ask for the interquartile range. So I am going to insert the median, which is the middle value. The median is 37.5. So for the first half of the data, I have to find the middle value. And the same thing applies for the second half of the data. The same way I was able to cross out the scores to find the middle value, I will do that to find the interquartile range. To find the interquartile range, I need to find the lower quartile, which is called Q1, and the upper quartile, which is called Q3. So since I know that 37.5 is the middle value, I will find Q1. So I will cross 26 and 37, 29 and 35. So there is one score in the middle. 31 is what we call Q1 or the lower quartile. I will do the same thing for the second half of the data. So I will cross 37 and 45, 38 and 42. There is one score in the middle, and this one score is called Q3. So after finding both the upper quartile and the lower quartile, the difference between these two scores is what we call the interquartile range. So 38 minus 31 will give us 7. The interquartile range is 7. Take down the solution for part 3 and we will continue in a few moments. Is anyone still writing?
No, miss.
Thank you. 4, we want the probability that a student chosen at random scores less than half the total marks in the test. The test was marked out of 60. If a student scored more than half of 60 is 30. So we want to know how many scores are there less than 30. From observation, the only two numbers that are less than 30 are the numbers 26 and 29. So the probability that a student scores less than 30, it is 2 over 10. There are 2 scores less than 30 and there are 10 students' scores. So 2/5 can be reduced to 1/5. The frequency distribution below shows the masses in kilograms of 50 adults prior to the start of a fitness program. We have mass in intervals. We looked at class intervals last day. So we have the mass in kilograms. On a graph, we cannot use the mass intervals to draw a frequency polygon. We have to find the midpoint, right? So the midpoint of the first interval, 60 to 64. Can someone tell me how do I find the midpoint of that interval? Anybody? How do I find the midpoint? How could I take that interval and get the number 62? Well, I simply add 60 plus 64 and I divide it by 2 and I will get 62. So the class intervals is from 60 to 64, right? And the midpoint is the average of those two scores. From last day, we have special names for each of those scores. 60 is what we call the lower class limit because that is the lower value. And 64 is what we call the upper class limit. So to find the midpoint, we add the lower class limit to the upper class limit and we get half of that and that will give us the midpoint. On the grid provided, use a scale of 2 centimeters to represent 5 units on the axis, on the x-axis, and 1 cm to represent 1 unit on the y-axis. Draw a frequency polygon to represent the information in the table. So, students, please get your graph page ready. If you don't have a graph page, a ruler and a pencil, it's fine. We are going to draw the frequency polygon. The scale is given to you. I remember telling you last day that you have to use the scale properly. You will be awarded 1 mark. You have to label the axes and you have to label the points correctly in order to score the correct marks for this question. All right, can you all see my screen? Are you all seeing my screen?
Yes,
Yes, Miss.
All right. So I want to demonstrate how to do the frequency polygon. So I will do it with you. We will pay particular attention and we will underline the scale. So the scale on the x-axis, 2 cm represents 5 units, right? So the midpoint goes on the x-axis and the frequency goes on the y-axis. Now, if you notice the y-axis, those intervals increase by a certain amount, not by a constant amount. So that is why we put frequency, cumulative frequency, everything that increases goes on the y-axis. And on the x, and 1 cm to represent 1 unit on the y-axis. So the highest value on the y-axis is 15. So the y-axis goes from 0 to 15. However, the x-axis, the lowest value is 62. So there is no need to start at 0, and the highest value is 87. So we could start drawing and labeling our x and y axes. X, and this is midpoint. This is frequency, and this is the y. Here is point 0. So from our question, 1 cm represents 1 unit on the y, and we go all the way up to 15. All right, so draw and label the axes for me. 2 cm represents 5 units. Now, we do not start at 0, so I will put some lines to indicate that the graph does not start at 0 on the x-axis. So we could start at the number 60, and 2 cm represents 5. And we are going all the way up to the highest value, which is 87, right? So we count in 5s, and 2 cm represents 5 units. So as soon as you all have your axes labeled correctly, we will move on. Somewhere to the top right-hand corner, we want to indicate the scale that was used. So the scale on the x-axis, 2 cm is equal to 5 units. The scale on the y-axis, 1 cm is equal to 1 unit. Does everyone have that?
Yes, Miss.
All right. So the points that we are going to draw, but before we do that, we need to find out. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 blocks between the number 60 and 65. So every 2 blocks, this will be 61, 62, 63, 64, and then 65. So every 2 blocks will represent 1 unit because of the interval that the question gave us. There are 10 blocks between the number 60 and 65. So every 2 blocks represent 1 unit. Every 2 small blocks every 2 small blocks represent 1 unit. So we will keep that in mind. The coordinates that we are going to plot is taken straight from the table. So we are plotting 62 on the x and 8 on the y. So I just told you that every 2 blocks represents 1. So from the number 60, we count 4 blocks. So that will give us 62, and we are going all the way up to the number 8. That is my first pair of coordinates. Now you don't have to draw the dots. You could simply use a ruler to draw the graph. So this is the first point. To indicate a point on a graph, you use one out of 2 things. You use a circle with a dot, or you use an X, right? So the first pair of coordinates, 62, 8. The second pair of coordinates, 67, 11. So we will find 67, and again, we know the point 65. So here will be 66, and 2 blocks after will be 67. So we are going 67 and all the way up to the number 11. That is my second point. The next pair of coordinates are 72, 15. So 70, 2 blocks after would be 71, and 2 blocks after 71 will be 72. And 15 is the highest point on my frequency polygon. $77, 9. So again, 75, 2 blocks after 75, we will find the number 76. And then 2 blocks after 76, we will find the number 77. And we go all the way up to 9. So that is my fourth point. Then we have 82, 5, and then 87, 2. Those points were taken directly from the table. 82, 4 small blocks after the number 80, and we go all the way up to 5 on the y-axis. Then we have 87, and this is 2. All right, so I will give you a couple minutes to draw the diagram and to ensure that you have the points plotted correctly. Then you connect the points. That is how we draw the frequency polygon. You connect each of the points.
Finish, miss.
Is there anyone in the class still drawing the frequency polygon?
No, miss.
No. If you notice, the frequency polygon is open on this end and it is open on this end. We cannot leave the diagram like that. It must be a closed figure. So we have to insert two values that will close the frequency polygon. So which means we have to find two intervals, the interval before 60 to 64 and the interval after 80 to 89. So this interval starts at 60 and it ends at 64. So the interval before that will end at 59 and it will start, the difference is roughly 4, so it will start at 55. The interval after 85 to 89 will start at the next consecutive number, which is 90, and roughly about 4, so this will be 94. For those two intervals, I would like you to find for me the midpoint. So find the midpoint, and the midpoint is found by adding the lower class limit plus the upper class limit divided by 2. So go ahead, find the midpoint for those two intervals.
$57.
And thank you, Malik. Could someone confirm Malik's answer?
Yes, miss.
All right, and give me the
92.
next. How much?
92.
All right,
Yeah, miss. Okay.
thank you. Now, the frequency of those two numbers, because we want to close the diagram, it must be 0. So we are plotting 57, 0 and 92, 57, 0 and 92, 0. So if this was the point 60, 2 blocks before 60 would be the point 59. Then we have 58, and this point here would be 57. So 57, 0 would be this point. On the y-axis, x is 57, but y is 0. So that is my first point. And then we have to find 92, 0, which is my last point. So go ahead and connect those 2 points to the line. And that is how we draw a frequency polygon as a closed figure.
Finish, miss.
Is there anyone writing still?
No,
Okay.
miss.
All right. So we move on to June 2018. And in June 2018, we have the question that reads as follows. Students in a group were asked to name their favorite sport. Their responses are shown on the pie chart below. So the favorite sports of these students are football, cricket, and tennis. Can someone tell me how many degrees are there in a circle?
360.
360. Having said that, the sum of angles in a circle is 360. So it means that the sum of 94 plus 45 plus x will give me 360. So find the sum of 94 and 45 and then subtract it from 360 and you will see that x is 211.
Yes, miss.
All right. So persons take down that quickly and then we move on to part 2. Part 2 asks, what percentage of students chose cricket? What is the angle representing cricket?
94.
94. So let's keep that in mind while we go to the next part of the question. So the percentage of students who chose cricket is the angle corresponding to cricket divided by the sum of the angles in a circle, which is 360, multiplied by 100%. So 94 divided by 360 multiplied by 100% will give us 26.11. Please take it on and then we move on. Given that 40 students chose tennis, calculate the total number of students in the group. From our diagram, tennis is represented by a sector angle of 45 degrees. So 45 degrees, this is the information that we know. 45 degrees represents 40 students. So we need to figure out how much does 1 degree represent and then find out for 360. So if 45 degrees is represented by 40 students, 1 degree will be 40 divided by 45, and for 360 we will get 40 over 45 multiplied by 360. (360) is represented by 320 students. If anyone wants to write it.
Missy, where's you working?
We'll be working right here, Malik.
Oh, okay, thanks. I didn't see you.
45 degrees is equal to 40 students. 1 degree is equal to 360 degrees. (40) divided by 45. So we have 40 over 45 multiplied by 360. Another way of doing it, this is the circle. Half of 45, half of 90 is 45, not so? So here represents 45, and this represents 40 students. So for a 90-degree angle, it will be represented by another 40, and the total angle is 80 students. (80 students is represented by a 90-degree angle. So there are 4 quarters or 4 90 degrees in a circle. So each 90 degrees will be represented by 80 students. And 80 multiplied by 4 will give us 320. Does anyone still write in?
No, miss.
No, miss. Negative.
The diagram below shows a frequency polygon on the number of goals scored by a football team in 25 matches. Now, this question, the frequency polygon is not closed. If it really was a frequency polygon, the lines would have come down straight to the x-axis. But nevertheless, we will work with what we have. Complete the following table using the information in the diagram. So we want to find the score, the number of matches for 2 and the number of matches for 5. So the number of goals is 2 and the number of matches this corresponds to is 3. Similarly, the number of goals is 5 and the number of matches is 2. So the two numbers that we had to find was 3 and 2. So the two missing values are 3 and 2. Part 2 says, what is the modal number of goals scored by the team? They are asking for the modal number. So we are looking for the number with the highest frequency. And the frequency is what we call the F value. What is the highest frequency in these numbers?
7.
And what score does it correspond to?
1.
So is the modal number 7?
No.
The modal number is 1. So the modal number of goals scored by the team is 1, since this score has the highest frequency. So write that please for me.
Finish, miss.
Determine the median number of goals scored by the team. Could anyone remember what is the total number of goals scored by the team? How many matches were there?
25 matches.
25 matches. So the median is a half of 25 plus 1, which is 26. And a half of 26 is the 13th value. Now, let me show you how I got that, okay? So I have the goals, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. These are my x values. The corresponding f values are 5, 7, 3, 3, 4, 2, and 1. So the frequency means how many times the number 0 occurs. So if I had to list my values, I would list 0 5 times because 0 occurs 5 times. 0, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is actually the raw data before putting it in the form of a table. 1 occurs 7 times. And the number 2 occurs 3 times. So I am going to stop there because I need to find the 13th value. So let us count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So the 13th value is 2. But instead of listing the information, there must be an easier way for us to find the median. And the method is we add until we reach 13. So we add 5 and 7, and take note that we are adding the frequency. So 5 and 7 is 12. We have not reached the 13 value. So which means when we add 12 and 3, that is 15. So the 13th value would lie here. So it's either you use the raw data or you use it by the sum of the frequency. So take it down and then we'll go to the mean. All right, is anyone still writing?
No, miss.
No, miss.
We want to find the median. We want to find the mean. So the mean is another name for average. So the formula for mean is the sum of the f of x, meaning that we multiply the frequency by the x value, and then we divide by the total number of frequencies, which is 25. So we multiply 0 by 5, we multiply 1 by 7, 2 by 3, 3 by 3, 4 by 4, 5 by 2, and 1 by 6. So the mean is the sum of f of x divided by the sum of f. This means sum. So take down the formula for the mean and take down the answer. Remember, students, practice makes perfect. So when we finish a couple questions in class, to make sure you have a better understanding, you all go to the past papers and ensure that you can answer the question without any level of difficulty. This morning's recording, in addition to Monday's recording, will be posted up on YouTube. By later this afternoon, I will send you all the link so you could go back and you could view, right, the recording, and you can see how the questions were done.